Welcome to Digital for Good, a podcast from Grade. Each episode, we talk with leaders, innovators, and changemakers who are exploring how technology, business, and creativity can create meaningful impact.
So, Simon, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, where to start? So, as you just mentioned, I'm working with Grade, commercial director. Thank you for that, Matt. No, my background basically is in agencies since day dot, basically. I've pretty much all I've ever done working with holdcos, had a couple of my own agencies, working with other independents, family-owned businesses, PE-backed agencies. So it's been a long and tumultuous career in the agency sector, which has been a lot of fun, and I do love it. I've always been drawn to the craft of the business, whether it be digital and websites, coding, etc., or creative, photography, film, etc. I've just always loved being around that craft of the industry, and it's always changed, perhaps accelerating a little bit more at the moment. And I guess I've just been lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time to take advantage of opportunities. As I say, I've had my own gig for a while as well. What I'm doing now is really drawing on that experience and trying to add value back to other agency owners, be that through growth planning, proposition development, business development. But also I've retrained over the last sort of 5 years on the transaction advisory side of things. So I'm now a kind of qualified business broker as well. So I can assist with exit planning and transaction advisory too. So it's been a lot of fun over the last few years, just staying close to the industry, but perhaps being in an adjacency, to use the investment banking term. Yeah.
So I bet you're talking about, periods of change at the moment. Like, it's definitely, things have accelerated. And I personally, Grades turns 15 in August, this coming August. And I'd say the last 2 years, we've seen the most change in our industry, in the wider sort of environment that we're working in. That's been challenging, but also really exciting at the same time. And for us to sort of how we apply, you talk about craft, how we apply that craft and that considered and rigorous thinking alongside, technological change around AI that's really accelerated a big part of the work we do, has been sort of fascinating. And as you know, kept me up at night a bit sometimes, but also sort of shown us that there's lots of different ways we can lean into what we do so well. And I'm sure you've seen that with lots of your other.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much to unpack in that little statement, set of statements, Matt. I mean, I think, of course, it's accelerating change, but look, change is completely normal from an agency perspective, right?
Yep.
We've been seeing that change for 30 years in reality, and probably a little bit longer than that as well. It just does feel like it's accelerating, no doubt about it. As every new model comes out, the capabilities get more and more impressive. But I think, and the lovely thing to me is, I've obviously worked with Grade and known you for many years, so I've seen the journey that you've been on and sort of been a part of that in a lot of ways. I think with AI, particularly where you guys are in a fantastic position, is that personally, I think where it is at its best is when you have a seasoned subject matter expert in something, whatever that is, plus a incredible brain, pattern matching, genius level sort of intellect based on what's gone before, and you put those together, then I think that's when the magic starts to happen. And I think we're definitely entering that phase now of this journey, which is super exciting, because Grade is quite a small business in reality, right? But I guess it's a bunch of very experienced folks across different dimensions of the digital sort of landscape.
Yeah, and it's forced us to be even clearer about the value that we bring to the work we do with our clients. And I think we've always known that, but often that value gets wrapped up in the toil or the execution or the sort of not busy work, but the work that doesn't really return massive value or massive ROI. So it's forced us in a good way, I think, to focus back on that and do a better job at articulating that to our clients, as opposed to the days or weeks or, months of output.
Yeah.
We're lucky. Like you said, I think our size, we're lucky. We felt there's been a lot of commercial pressure brought in through, I think, a lot of the AI kind of noise over the last 2 or 3 years. But I'm just glad we don't have, 50 programmers sat waiting to be fed with work, because I think that would have been a very, very challenging period with what's been going on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, you do hear there's lots of rhetoric out there. And you do hear, I speak to many, many agencies, and you hear a lot of agency leaders say that AI is not going to replace the jobs, it'll just change them. And I think that's partly true. But I do feel that's a bit of a comfort blanket in reality. The honest version is that AI is already displacing roles.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it. And as you say, particularly in the execution layer, and that's what's getting automated. And I think pretending otherwise just isn't doing anyone any favors. And I know that from Grade's perspective, because you don't have a large number in that sort of doing layer, it sets you up quite nicely, I think, for the future opportunity. But I do think there's a lot of tension there with with that more junior team member, because the problem is, I think, that subject matter expert plus AI equals velocity, and that's where AI really accelerates in the hands of somebody who already knows what they're doing. So the tool sort of amplifies what you bring to it. So if you bring expertise, you get velocity. If you bring inexperience, you get a shit ton of volume, and volume without quality is just a liability. It's just noise.
Yeah, and we've been,
and it just doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, and we've been really careful about that, and we've wanted to make sure that the output that we deliver, whether it's produced, by hand coding juniors or AI augmented seniors, we want to feel responsible for that output, and we want to be sure that it's quality. So that's something that actually probably meant we didn't lean into using a lot of AI tooling early on. And we just wanted to feel comfortable ourselves that we had the right checks and measures and the right process. And we had learned the tooling well enough before we start delivering client work that, it's got our name on it. And we're the ones who, if something goes wrong, need to be able to fix it. And I feel quite strongly about that. So, and I think also, just to sort of extend on that, is, as a business that prides itself on its ethical approach and, becoming a B Corp late last year, there's tension every time we use AI tools. There's tension in how we reconcile those two things. And for us, from a, human resource point of view, and from a, wanting to behave ethically with our teams, is everything we do with AI is, like you said, it's meant to augment or extend velocity, not replace people for us. And again, we're lucky to be able to be able to resist that pressure that I know a lot of big companies are doing. Arguably, a lot of big companies are using AI as a nice excuse to downsize their teams, I think. But it's definitely dead. It is real, that commercial pressure. And I think I'm happy that we can fly a little bit under that as much as we can.
Well, Zuckerberg's apparently building a digital twin of himself, isn't he? So that he can, it can make decisions on his behalf across the business.
Yeah. And Meta's revenue grew 22% last year or something. It's crazy. So I think the big end of town are using it and using the sort of the environment and the mood as a way to maybe do things just to make them more money. But we even, I think, and I've written a bit about it, we struggle from a sort of environmental impact standpoint as well, which is, there's a huge negative environmental impact from compute power when it comes to carbon or water. And again, there's just a tension in that, and we haven't reconciled it yet. And again, luckily we're small and we're not having a material negative impact, as we're not using millions of tokens every month. But it will become more of a problem.
You mean
billions?
Yeah, exactly.
I know, but that's the thing. It's like you minimize it and you try and think, it's probably not as much of a problem. And again, I think we all have to make those trade-offs, right? Like I'm flying more to get down to Sydney far more than I have in the past. And I'm a little bit uneasy with that because I'm having a sort of material
I know you
increase.
carbon.
No, I do. And I direct carbon offset in my backyard. So it's very direct, hands-on carbon offsetting. So that sort of makes me feel a bit better. But I think it's just interesting to navigate all of this and dwell on it enough. But
honestly, I think that we're fine. You know what I mean? As I said earlier, the subject matter expert plus AI, fantastic. But the thing that concerns me a little bit is, in addition, as you say, to the sustainability angle, is the talent pipeline kind of problem. What this means for the next generation coming through, and you're sort of hearing that already from graduates. I mean, I have 3 Gen Z sons, and it definitely concerns me that it's harder to get entry-level positions than ever before. I mean, the way that part of the market has reduced dramatically. And even on the agency side, I mean, the owners I talk to simply just don't need to hire the way that they used to. The problem is that the junior layer is where people develop the filter, that experience, that how to handle a meeting, how to handle people face to face. It's just part of learning on the job. And that is that, coupled with obviously the reduction or in office time, means that you just don't have that same opportunity to sort of learn on the job. And that junior layer is the next generation sort of coming through. So where does the next generation of subject matter experts come from?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a real, and we've been thinking about that, and and we look at our team now, and yes, they're great and they're experienced, but you're right. We haven't yet solved how do we sort of grow bottom up, or as those team members move on, hopefully not for a long time, but we will have that challenge. Like I do think, and I've read a bit of sort of hyperbole about this kind of idea of programmers, PMs, designers. There's this sort of hybrid role of that type of person who because of the tooling takes on a sort of cross-functional position. And I think I'd argue that we've sort of already got that, because of our size, our team members do move across. Yes, we might have a PM who's very technical or a PM who's more creative. We might have a technical person who's great with clients and can sort of solutionize with clients as well. So I think that sort of blended generalist role, and that the success of those kind of roles, you're right, is I think is soft skills more than, yes, they can write lines of JavaScript. And that soft skill thing is something, and again, my children are, primary and high school age, is I rant at them quite regularly about that interpersonal teamwork, problem solving as a group is where they're going to be successful. And it's why, I encourage them to do, excursions at schools that's with kids they're not great friends with, or things that they don't really want to do, because I think that actually leaning into it is hugely important, not just staying with their little clique of doing the things that they love. And I think you can apply that thinking to work as well. And to what we do.
Definitely. Yeah, it's just so important to get out, isn't it? What does that old saying, the desk is a dangerous place from which to view the world.
Yep. Yeah, and we get it, and you've seen it as well. We've been a fully remote team from day one.
Yeah.
But in the last few years, we've spent more time together than we did historically. And, we've all spread out across Australia. So that's proved some, literal, physical issues to get together. But the time we spend together with clients is where the real value and opportunity is. And it motivates people. You can see it on their faces straight away, and it gets the best out of people the more time we spend together.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I don't know. I mean, I've been reflecting on that sort of 20-something position. What would I do? What would you do if you were back in that position? It's very hard because, I think that if you look generationally, boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, they're all complaining that the one above had it better than them. And I think that's probably very true in a lot of ways with the socioeconomic environment, macroeconomic environment that we have now. It is tough for those guys. So what is a path forward for 22-year-old today? And I was thinking about this, and I think if I know what knew kind of then what I know now, I think in today's environment, I'd be trying to find the most talented subject matter expert that I can, however old, and actually hitching my wagon to that person in whatever field it was that I was passionate about. But I'd basically align myself, not as a junior, but as somebody, hey, look, I will help you navigate the AI version of yourself. I will help you capture, systemize everything that you know and do a better job than Mark Zuckerberg's doing, by the way. So by doing that, you're providing a tremendous value add to that individual, whoever that happens to be. But at the same time, you're learning something tremendous by doing it. And I do wonder whether there's this kind of union across those generations, which would be a good way to do it, to go about doing it, because there's a lot of knowledge from that segment of our community in that sector. So and because it's the ability of an agent armed with someone's historical decision making, pattern recognition, accumulated knowledge that can retrieve and process more experience than any you or I can hold, right? But what's missing from that is that quirkiness, that humanity, and that's where the sort of gold is. So somehow you want to try and bring those together, and that is where the gold is.
Yeah, and knowing when to interrogate things, and we've learned that a lot recently. Of yes, you're right, pattern recognition, review historical data at volume. We're very few people can do that or want to do that very well.
Yeah,
and then how do you use AI to provide that service or ability, but then the human touch, like you said, is the quirkiness or the interrogation or the challenging of the output. And I think the better you do that, the more kind of reliable or positive the output is. And we're at a point where we're trying to use AI to get to a point, and then it's bringing our skill and experience to translate that or push back on it, or say it's wrong or it's right, or sort of tweak the direction of it. And I think we're getting about that, and we're sort of seeing a point where the slightly, oh my god, this is going to do everything we need in the future. We don't, AI is going to solve all the problems. I think there's a maturity now where people realize that's not quite the case, and it's amazing for the right things. But when you add that human knowledge or experience or intuition, let's say, on top of it, that's the sort of perfect little mix. But yeah, like, I don't know. I talked to you saying if you were 22 or 20 and what would you do? Yeah, for my teenage kids, I'm not really sure. Like, I think I kind of would jokingly say to them, don't do anything while you're sat at a desk all day long, because I just don't think it's very good for you. But I do think, and again, you've been along the great journey for a long time, and the ups and downs, when we are delivering, craft and producing things that have real impact, that is hugely fulfilling. And that is why we keep doing what we do, even though it's been challenging and the tooling's changed and the way we work has changed dramatically over the last 24 months. That final output, or that knowing that you've helped an organization or a startup or a corporate, whoever it is, do something really impactful, there's just a massive amount of, it feels good to do it. And it still feels good to do it after 25 years of doing this job.
I don't know. Are we all just chronic ADHD folk who just have to leap from one exciting new project to another?
Yeah, maybe,
is that
maybe.
It's just neurospiciness that's driving that. But
it could well be. It could well be. Oh God! Like I love our clients and I love the ones who have been at their jobs for a long time. But yeah, I'm not sure if I could do that. Working in one organization on one thing for years and years and years.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I must admit, I am definitely in my, shall we say, older age. I definitely feel that compelled to just look for interesting new things. I do think it is probably a form of neurospiciness, but that's all right. Yeah. I call it a growth mindset.
Nice. Jumping from one thing to another. Yeah, God, I don't know. Yes, I definitely, and I think we can all multitask very well, and we can all context shift very, very well.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that is a new sort of a relatively new phenomenon with AI. Is it? I mean, the nature of it seems to have changed quite a lot, because it can move so quickly that you can be running many, many things at once. The hard thing is holding on to quality and be able to see through that, because as I said earlier, the volume that you can generate at speed is just nuts.
Yeah.
And I think you had an example of that with a client recently where a lot of the team had gone off and been furiously generating concepts and directions and strategy and so on, and just basically ended up with an enormous body of pretty much undoable work, because how do you prioritize it? How do you focus? What do you pick off first?
Yeah, and there's been a sort of argument in the sort of product strategy or product management world of, because you can prototype so quickly and iterate on those prototypes, do you need to do that kind of strategic interrogation early on? Because you can just spin up loads of tests and throw them away or extend them as you see fit. But like you said, you can end up with too many directions, and it's very hard to undo things once you've seen them or played with them. And you would have known, like, you show a client a rough and ready concept that's not been thought through, and it can be a real nightmare if they love it too much, because it's then painted you into a corner that doesn't have any strategic backup to it. And, it's why we, in the early days when we would, pitch for clients, which thankfully we didn't need to too often, we would never present creative concepts for any web work, because we knew without that kind of UX thinking, it's just fluff.
Yeah.
The odd time we did do that because we felt the pressure to, it was a nightmare if they love something, because then we've got to go, well, how can we build this thing? This is just a visual concept that you can't build easily for web or whatever it was. So yeah, I would argue, it's like you said before, if you, just because you can, often that's more harm than good. And even the last week, we've been using the phrase, we're helping our clients choose what not to do as much as what to do. And I think that's even more important because it's so quote unquote easy to execute work now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so true. I think the other thing I'd add to that is that defining the problem that you're trying to solve, sort of only a few words there and rolls off the tongue very easily. But that in itself is a huge part of any job. If you can really, really drill into it, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Why? Why? And get to a point where you actually spent the time on defining that. The build side is a small part of it in reality, right? And I've heard that a lot from the development community and the agencies that I talk to. I think I was also just reflecting on something you said there about sort of the what's good, and I think this podcast is sort of has an underlying kind of current of sustainability and sort of digital for good. I think what's interesting about Grade is I'm just not sure that Grade could have existed maybe 10 years ago, built around a point of view on technology, creativity, and doing good in the world. It's become a filter for the agency. I'm just curious. I love it. I think it's great, and I think there should be more of it.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So when we started, almost 15 years ago, the strategy was not based around doing good to the world. The strategy was we just had our first child and I wanted to work from home. That was the driver in the early days, and I did it and it was great. And then we attracted some clients, one being the AIDS House of New South Wales, and we realized quite quickly that we could do what we do, which was build useful, bug-free technology. That's what we were focused on back then, really stable pieces of web software for organizations or companies or startups who were doing good things for the world. And for me, it was just a moment of thinking I can sort of have my cake and eat it. I used to joke with friends is, well, I'm not saving the world by building a website. And then we realized, well, we can actually do really good things and still build websites for people. So that was a kind of organic process for us.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a filter as such that we would use in those sort of middle years, but it's become at the forefront of what we do of late. And that's, for many reasons. Firstly is, like I said, I want to know that we're doing good things because it makes me feel better selfishly. I know the team, it engages the team massively. And, it is a fulfilling process to be helping organizations or companies to make positive impact as opposed to just sell more shit, which we've done. And every now and then a client comes along who's, not necessarily overtly impact driven, and we'll do work for them and it's fine. And we're not extracting or doing negative things for the world. But the really fulfilling stuff is that positive impact. And that can be, environmental, it can be community, it can be for people as well. Like, a lot of the work we do isn't obviously impact driven, but if we're looking at, things like the work we've done in the property sector, it's helping people getting a home for their family, obviously with a commercial lens to that for the companies we work for, but it's still ultimately doing positive things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do think that it does give you pause sometimes to have to reflect on, is this really does this pass muster for us? And I know that you have said no a few times to work. And there's that Bill Burnback expression around principle not being principle unless it costs you something. And, I think that's
and when we've done that,
great words. I mean, I know.
And it's painful for the commercial pressure, but I still think it's always been worthwhile, even with the short-term pain that it might bring. What would you think is the decision in your career that's made the biggest difference?
Yeah, well, I wish I'd actually been properly prepared to answer that, Matt. I was just trying to give you a cue for the.
I know. Shit, I've actually got to answer it now.
No. I mean, I think I actually alluded to it earlier. I mean, I think I'm just naturally a curious person. I guess I'm the kid in the park by the park bench with a wet paint sign on it who reaches out to touch the wet paint just to double check that it actually is still wet. And I don't know. I mean, I think the reality is for me, it's that I'm always chasing new innovation, new stimulation, and I've just learned to embrace that because I ain't going to change it. And embracing curiosity, continual learning mindset, I think that is super important, particularly staying really genuinely curious about what's changing, what it all means. And it'll always be a work in progress.
Yeah, great. No, that's great. Thank you.